Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something really quite fascinating and honestly pretty critical. We're looking at the global vocational training market.
Yeah, it's a sector that's really reshaping how the world prepares its workforce.
Exactly. So if you want a shortcut to understanding that workforce development piece and, the economic impact, you're definitely in the right place.
Hmm.
Our mission today is basically to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts, from this really comprehensive source. It's the Global Vocational Training Market Analysis and Forecasts report from Cognitive Market Research.
Right. We're trying to cut through the noise, give you that informed perspective on what's a pretty fast-moving landscape.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The big picture numbers.
Hmm.
Globally, vocational training revenue, sales revenue hit nearly $39 billion back in 2021.
38.83 to be precise.
Right, and it's climbing, projected to hit over $61 billion by 2033.
Yeah, $61.63 billion. That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of almost 4%,
Mm-hmm.
3.926% actually. And what's really fascinating here, I think, beyond just those big numbers, it's not just growth for growth's sake. It points to a pretty fundamental shift, a strategic one, in how countries, how industries are thinking about workforce readiness,
Mm-hmm.
which, it raises a key question for you listening. Where is this growth actually happening fastest? And what does that tell us about economic priorities, labor strategies in different parts of the world?
That's a great question. And yeah, that's exactly what we want to unpack now, sort of region by region. Shall we start with North America?
Makes sense. It's a major market.
Okay, so North America.
Yep.
Already significant, right? Around $13.3 billion in 2021.
At 13.8 billion, yeah.
And that's projected to grow to nearly $20 billion by 2033, $19.91 billion.
With a KGR of about 3.4% overall for the region.
Now, drilling down a bit within North America, the U.S. obviously holds the biggest share. Steady growth there, about 3.3% GDR projected.
Right. From $10.5 billion to nearly $15.6 billion.
But what really caught my eye, and you mentioned this sort of difference in growth rates, Canada.
Yeah.
Canada is showing a notably stronger growth rate, over 4% CAGR.
Exactly. $1.69 billion going up to $2.71 billion. That 4.039 CAGR is interesting.
And Mexico's solid too, around 3.6%.
Right. So that stronger Canadian growth. What does the report suggest is behind that?
Well, it points towards a proactive national strategy. Seems like they're really targeting skilled trades.
For key industries maybe,
Mhm.
like energy, tech.
Exactly. Things like government incentives, partnerships between industry and academia.
Yeah.
They seem to be accelerating skills development.
That's in a sense a more targeted approach yielding faster growth.
Okay, so moving across the pond, let's look at Europe.
Okay.
Another big market, obviously. Growing consistently. It was about $8.8 billion in 2021.
$8.77 billion.
And it projected to hit over $13 billion by 2033. $13.19 billion.
With a regional CAGR around 3.5%. Pretty steady.
It's definitely a diverse picture in Europe. The UK, France, Italy,
Yeah.
they're all showing solid expansion.
UK going from $1.15 to $1.8 billion. France, $1.54 billion. Italy, $842 million up to $1.22 billion.
But two countries really kind of jumped out from the data, Germany and Spain.
Ah, yes. Germany with a particularly strong CAGR, right?
Yeah, 4.2%. From $1.73 billion, aiming for $2.8 billion by 2033.
Well, that's quite robust for a mature economy.
And Spain, too, not quite as high as Germany, but still strong, 3.77 per CAGR, $809 million, up to $1.25 billion.
Interesting. So Germany's strength? That perhaps isn't a huge surprise.
How so?
Well, connecting to the bigger picture, Germany has that really deep-rooted apprenticeship system, right? That dual system.
Yes.
It provides a very clear, established pathway for vocational training. It's kind of baked into their economic model.
Good point. So the infrastructure is already there to support that growth.
Exactly. And for Spain,
Yeah.
what's driving their acceleration?
The report points to a strategic push there, upskilling the workforce, specifically responding to digital transformation.
Ah, okay. And maybe green jobs, too.
Yeah, exactly. Emerging green sectors. So vocational training is positioned as a key tool for their sort of economic recovery and modernization efforts.
Makes sense. Using VET strategically to navigate big economic shifts.
Okay, now, here's where, like you said earlier, the growth story gets really interesting. Asia Pacific, The report basically calls it the undeniable growth engine.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty staggering here.
It's rocketing from around $11.10 billion in 2021.
All the way up to nearly $20 billion, $19.29 billion projected for 2033.
And the overall regional CAGR, an impressive 4.72%, almost 5%.
That's significantly higher than North America or Europe.
Absolutely. So who's leading the charge? China, no surprise, is the regional leader. Huge expansion.
Yeah, $3.69 billion in 2021, heading towards a massive $6.53 billion.
Japan's showing significant growth, too, $1.68 billion to $2.69 billion. But the real standouts, I think, in terms of growth rate, India and Southeast Asia.
Right. India's CAGR is remarkable.
It really is, 5.76%, rising from $1.23 billion to $2.41 billion, nearly doubling its market size.
Wow. And Southeast Asia.
One of the highest CAGRs globally, actually, 5.3008%, going from $804 million to almost $1.5 billion.
That's incredible growth. And you also see strong numbers from South Korea, Australia, Singapore.
Yep, South Korea, $1.1 billion to $1.79 billion. Australia, $645 million to $984 million.
And Singapore, you mentioned.
Singapore's got a CAGR just over 5% too, hitting $781 million by 2033. Even Taiwan is growing well.
So the sheer scale and speed in Asia-Pacific, particularly India and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
What's the underlying story?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, as you say, these are regions with enormous youthful populations.
Right, and rapid industrialization, huge tech adoption happening.
Exactly. So the report really underscores that vocational training here isn't just, a side thing. It's fundamental.
It's about equipping millions, literally millions, with practical skills. Skills needed for these expanding economies. Yeah. Skills to integrate into the global workforce.
It's a massive engine for development, not just economic growth.
Absolutely, a powerful force.
Okay, let's move south now.
South America.
Another region showing dynamic expansion.
Yeah, the sector there is projected to grow from about $2.7 billion in 2021
$2.68 billion.
to nearly $4.4 billion by 2033, $4.39 billion with a regional CGR of over 4%, 4.188%.
Pretty strong growth overall. And Brazil leads the pack.
Brazil's the leader, yeah. $1.02 billion heading towards $1.64 billion.
Okay.
But the report specifically highlights Argentina.
With a strong CGR again.
Yeah, really notable within the region. 4.719%, $469 million, expected to reach $815 million.
Wow, that's almost matching the Asia-Pacific average growth rate.
It is. Colombia, Peru, Chile also showing decent growth.
So Argentina's performance, any hints as to why it's so strong?
The report suggests it indicates a really focused effort, addressing specific labor market needs.
Right, maybe driven by shifts in their industries or perhaps a targeted policy response to unemployment through, skill-building programs. Could be. That kind of concentrated growth often points to a strategic national commitment to these vocational pathways.
Makes sense. Okay, we're next. Middle East.
Yep. Let's look at the Middle East. Projected to climb from $1.94 billion in 2021
up to $3.15 billion by 2033.
Key players: Saudi Arabia, Turkey showing solid numbers, Saudi Arabia heading towards $831 million, Turkey towards $743 million.
Okay.
But the real standout here seems to be the UAE, United Arab Emirates.
Another high CAGR.
Yep. A standout 4.964% CAGR. It's not the biggest market in raw numbers, $237 million to $424 million, but that growth rate is significant.
Nearly 5%. And what's particularly insightful, I think, is why. The report is quite explicit here. It directly links this growth across the Middle East, and especially in the UAE, to national upskilling initiatives.
Okay. So that gives you, the listener, a really clear why behind the investment.
Exactly. It's not just the market expanding on its own. It's a deliberate strategic push by governments.
To enhance their workforces, presumably for economic diversification, moving beyond oil and gas.
Precisely. Building skills for new industries. Vocational training as a key part of that national strategy.
Interesting. Okay, let's round out our world tour with Africa.
Okay.
The market here showing consistent growth. From about $1 billion in 2021.
$1.05 billion.
Projected to reach $1.77 billion by 2033. The AGR is around 3.4%.
So, steady growth, not quite the explosive rates of APAC, but solid.
Right. South Africa is the leader on the continent, heading towards $630 million. Nigeria also showing significant expansion, $173 million to $289 million.
And the rest of Africa contributing significantly, too.
Yes, about half a billion growing to nearly $800 million.
So that consistent growth in Africa,
Uh-huh.
while maybe not the headline-grabbing CGRs elsewhere, it feels incredibly significant, doesn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, think about the continent's demographics, that huge youth population, the ongoing development needs, this steady rise in vocational training investment. It suggests a kind of foundational effort, building human capital for the future.
Right, laying the groundwork.
Yeah. It underscores, I think, a long-term commitment, equipping a new generation with the skills they need to drive economic progress across a continent that's poised for really significant demographic shifts.
That's a great perspective. Okay, so we've dived deep into all these regions, all these numbers. Let's pull back. What does this all mean for you, our listener? The big takeaway.
Well, the global trend seems undeniable, right? Governments, industries, worldwide, they are making significant strategic investments in vocational education.
It's not just a nice to have anymore.
Not at all. And if we connect this back to that bigger picture, this investment isn't just about, offering more courses on a list. It's about proactively building workforces that are resilient, workforces that can actually adapt to these incredibly rapid tech shifts, the changing market demands.
Yeah.
The report really highlights how VET is directly tackling critical skills gaps.
Yeah.
Think about advanced manufacturing, the huge IT landscape, crucial healthcare sector.
Absolutely. And it feels like vocational training is becoming this real catalyst for inclusive economic development. Well, it provides these direct pathways. Pathways to employment, to stability. It's fundamentally redefining what it even means to be job ready.
Right. It's not just about the traditional four-year degree anymore.
Exactly. It's about practical, applicable knowledge, skills that deliver tangible results in the workplace, often much faster.
And that's precisely why the report kind of hammers home this message. This space, vocational training, is genuinely worth your close attention. Doesn't matter if you're a policymaker thinking about education strategy.
Or an investor looking for robust growth sectors.
Or even just, a lifelong learner yourself, curious about how people are really preparing for the jobs of tomorrow. It's relevant across the board.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe a final thought to chew on, like a provocative one perhaps.
Go for it.
If vocational training is becoming such a central pillar, this key piece of future workforce development globally, how might our traditional education models, universities, colleges, how might they need to adapt, evolve even further to stay relevant?
That's a big question.
Could continuous upskilling, reskilling, maybe largely through these vocational pathways, could that become the new essential norm for pretty much every career path? Something to mull over.
Definitely something to think about. And just to reiterate, our insights for today's discussion came directly from that report, the Global Vocational Training Market Analysis and Forecasts by Cognitive Market Research. Okay, so everywhere you look, the world of work is, it's changing incredibly fast, almost faster than we can keep track, right?
Definitely. New careers popping up, old pathways struggling.
Exactly. And industries desperately need skills that, frankly, traditional routes aren't always delivering. It's a huge challenge.
But also a massive opportunity.
That's it. And right at the heart of that opportunity, vocational training.
Yeah.
We need to forget any outdated ideas about it. This isn't some secondary option anymore.
Not at all.
We're talking about a really vibrant, responsive pathway that's becoming absolutely critical.
So crucial, yeah.
So today, we're doing a deep dive. We're going to unpack vocational training, look at the forces driving its growth, the obstacles it's, still bumping up against, and where it seems to be heading.
We've got some great insights to draw on.
We do, yeah, based on some really compelling analysis from Cognitive Market Research.
Good stuff.
So if you're navigating your own career or maybe thinking about upskilling, or honestly, even if you're just curious about the future of work.
Which a lot of people are.
Right. Understanding this landscape is pretty essential for seeing where the real demand actually lies.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. To really get it, we need to start with the basic problem vocational training is trying to solve.
Which is?
That widening skill gap we keep hearing about.
Yes.
The gap. Traditional education, university degrees and so on. They have their value, absolutely. But often, They just don't quite hit the mark for the practical job-specific skills industries need now.
Right now, yeah, not in 4 years, but today.
Exactly. Think about advanced manufacturing, specialized IT roles, modern healthcare needs, the way hospitality is changing.
All evolving so fast.
They need skilled people urgently
Yeah.
with very specific adaptable skills.
And what's really insightful here, I think, is that it's not just about filling today's jobs. It's about building a workforce that can actually adapt to what's coming next.
Future-proofing almost.
Sort of, yeah. The real strength of vocational training is its speed, its ability to respond quickly to what industry needs.
That's a key point.
It's a critical differentiator, especially now with the economy being so unpredictable. And you see this particularly in rapidly expanding emerging economies.
Where new industries just spring up.
Exactly. And they need skilled workers almost overnight. Vocational training can deliver that much faster.
And it's not just companies demanding this, is it? Governments are stepping up in a big way globally.
Oh, massively. A real strategic shift.
You look at India's Skill India mission or China's VET reform plan. Germany's dual training system is maybe the classic example.
The dual system, yeah, very well established.
These aren't just small initiatives. They seem like major national strategies. They're putting in serious funding, reforming curricula, pushing public-private partnerships.
They are, and the aim is absolutely to create sustainable change on the ground.
Does it always work out perfectly?
Well, like any large-scale initiative, there are challenges. But what's crucial is seeing these as a fundamental rethink of a national human capital strategy. Governments are realizing that investing in vocational education is a direct path to economic competitiveness and social stability, too.
Right.
It's not just about access anymore. It's about creating this pipeline of talent for specific needs now and in the future, building that economic bedrock.
And then there's the tech angle. This seems particularly transformative for vocational ed.
Huge.
We're seeing things like AI-powered learning platforms, really immersive AR and VR simulations.
Yeah, the simulations are amazing.
And learning management systems, the LMS, right?
Yeah.
That digital backbone delivering the content.
Right.
What kind of impact are we actually seeing from this tech?
Oh, the impact is profound, and these aren't just generic tools. Imagine an AI watching a welding student in VR.
Okay.
It can analyze their movements in real time, pinpoint exactly where their posture is off or their arc isn't consistent.
Wow. Instant feedback.
Instant personalized feedback. That's a level of precision and scale that traditional training just couldn't easily achieve.
Right.
And yes, safety and accessibility are big benefits too. But the really revolutionary part, how tech is just dismantling geography.
Breaking down barriers.
Completely. High-quality training, reaching people in remote areas who were just locked out before. It's more than just an improvement. It's a paradigm shift for the global workforce.
But, okay, it's not all perfect, right? It can't be all smooth sailing. Despite the momentum, there are still significant challenges.
Definitely. Hurdles remain.
And one major one, which is kind of surprising in a way, is this persistent social stigma.
Ah, yes, the perception issue.
In many cultures, vocational education is still seen as, well, less prestigious than a university degree.
Unfortunately, yes. Deep-seated.
From your perspective, what's the single best way to start chipping away at that? Not just logically, but emotionally, for the students deciding their path.
That's a great question because the impact is so direct, it limits enrollment. Simple as that.
Even with good job prospects.
Even with fantastic job prospects and earning potential, there's this disconnect between perceived value and actual opportunity.
So how do you fix it?
It needs multiple approaches, for sure, but maybe the most effective thing, showcasing success stories. Real people.
Not just stats.
Exactly. When young people see their peers thriving in skilled trades, earning good money, building cool careers, that changes minds much faster than any ad campaign.
Makes sense.
We also just need to get past this, this almost 20th century idea that there's only one right path after school.
Yeah, that linear thinking.
Right.
And beyond perception, there are practical issues too. Especially, it seems, in developing countries.
Yes, very practical limits.
Things like a shortage of qualified trainers and just not having the right infrastructure.
Basic facilities sometimes.
Lots of institutions just don't have the modern tools, the labs, the instructors with up-to-date experience.
To deliver training that really meets today's industry standards, it's a real bottleneck.
And then, kind of layering on top of that, is this issue of inconsistent standards, accreditation, quality control. It varies a lot.
It does, and the consequence there is significant. It makes it hard for qualifications to be recognized across different regions or internationally.
So portability is an issue.
Big time, it hinders student mobility. Your certificate might not mean much somewhere else, and crucially, it erodes employer confidence.
If they can't trust the certification.
Exactly. A company needs to know that a welder certified here meets the same standard as one certified over there. That inconsistency is a major barrier.
So pulling these hurdles together, the stigma, the infrastructure, the standards, what's the overall impact on vocational training's growth?
Well, ultimately, they just slow down its potential. They hold it back from being fully accepted as a primary, truly valuable pathway.
Right.
They prevent it from scaling up to become the mainstream solution it really needs to be to tackle that global skills gap we talked about.
Okay, so despite the challenges, let's shift focus. Looking ahead, what are the big trends? Where is vocational training evolving next? Seems like there's some exciting stuff happening.
Oh, absolutely. Lots of innovation.
One huge shift seems to be these corporate partnerships and apprenticeship programs.
Yes, much tighter industry links.
Companies working directly with training providers to design the courses
Co-designing curricula, yeah. So the learning is immediately relevant to their needs.
and offering real work experience alongside it. It bridges that old gap between classroom and job site.
It really does.
Now that sounds like a clear win-win,
Yeah.
but could there be a downside? Some people might argue it makes training too specialized, maybe losing broader skills. How do you find that balance?
That's a fair point to raise, but the benefits are usually immense.
Right.
Industry gets talent perfectly matched to their needs, cutting hiring costs.
Hmm.
And learners get hands-on experience, often get paid while learning, and have a clear path to employment.
Makes sense.
The balance, I think, lies in how you structure it. Build modular programs, have core foundational skills, then add these specialized, employer-driven modules on top.
So adaptable specialization, not narrow training.
Exactly. Agile and responsive, build on a solid base.
We're also seeing this explosion in short courses and micro-credentials, right?
Oh, yeah. Huge growth there. Platforms like Coursera, Skillshare.
They're really appealing because they're flexible, modular. You can upskill quickly for one specific thing, a new piece of software, a particular process.
Without committing to years of study, it fits modern career paths much better.
And what feels particularly exciting is the focus now on emerging sectors and these
Yep.
green skills.
Yes, skills for sustainability.
Competencies for jobs that help the environment.
Crucial area.
We're seeing new programs in things like renewable energy tech, AI and robotics, cybersecurity.
Drone operation, green construction.
These really feel like the jobs of tomorrow, and vocational training seems to be getting ahead of the curve here.
I think it is. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, these skills are vital, absolutely critical for preparing the workforce for more automation and definitely for a more sustainable world.
So it's positioning yourself right at the front.
Right at the forefront of this huge global shift. Equipping people not just for today's jobs, but for where the economy is actually going.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The big takeaway seems clear. Vocational training isn't some fallback anymore.
Definitely not. Not a plan B.
It's really a strategic, vital solution to this massive global challenge, the skills gap.
Exactly. And when it has that strong support from governments, from industry, boosted by technology, it's uniquely powerful.
Bridging the gap.
Bridging that gap, creating real jobs, real opportunities. It drives personal prosperity, but also national economic strength, resilience.
So a final thought then for you listening, something to chew on. Given how fast job markets are changing and this growing demand for practical, hands-on skills, how might our whole idea of what makes a career prestigious completely shift as these new, highly skilled vocational fields become more and more central?
Interesting question. Will prestige follow the demand?
Maybe. Something to think about. Keep exploring, keep learning, and definitely stay curious about how work and education are evolving.